In 1991, one of the most gruesome murders took place on Thanksgiving. The murder left the community horrified, and the killer was dubbed as the Thanksgiving Butcher and was compared to Hannibal Lecter. Before I start, just a quick 30 seconds to thank today's sponsor, Wicked Clothes, who have helped to make my 2 videos a week possible. They are one of my absolute favourite companies, and it's easy to promote their stuff because I love what they do. They're a clothing company who specialise in creepy and funny clothing, and they're always creating new and exciting stuff. Here are a couple of my favourite designs they do, and I always have to mention this one because it's my favourite, and they now do it in a t-shirt too. But here are some others. Their clothes are very reasonably priced, and if you type in Disturbing in the coupon section, you will get a further 10% off the items you choose. Or you can click the link in the description and it should do it for you automatically. So check them out, it's a great way to help support the channel, and you get some seriously awesome clothes too. It's a win-win. And now, onto the video. This case takes place in Costa Mesa, California, on November the 28th, 1991. Omaima Aree was a woman who was born in Egypt. She was raised in a poor village near Sudan and had a rather traumatic upbringing. She was abused by her father sexually, emotionally, and physically, and she was even the victim of female genital mutilation, which is when the clitoris is sliced off, resulting in sex being extremely painful and uncomfortable. Her mother was also abused by her father too, and eventually they left to escape the violence they faced. But this meant they had to move to a slum that was built among a graveyard, and was named the City of the Dead. Omaima had only known poverty, and was desperate to escape the life she had. At 18, she met an American man who was working in Egypt. He worked in the oil industry, and made a decent amount of money. The two began a relationship, and this would be her chance to leave the situation she was in and begin a new life. The two married, and they flew to America in 1986. The couple didn't last too long, and now she was in an unfamiliar country and unable to support herself in a stable way. She took any job she could get her hands on, but she struggled as she didn't speak great English. This hindered her ability to find regular work, so she mainly worked as a nanny and managed to get the odd job as a model. But at some points, she had to turn to crime and steal things just to get by. She also started disingenuous relationships with men and manipulated them into giving her money, and sometimes she would just straight up steal from them. At one point, she got close with a man, then pointed a loaded shotgun at him and demanded he hand over all of his money, and he did. Essentially, she became a professional criminal and a professional gold digger. After committing this crime, she moved to California so she wouldn't be caught, and there she locked eyes with a man named Bill Nelson. Bill Nelson was a rather eccentric man. To say he stood out was an understatement. He was somewhat of a show-off. He drove a red Corvette and walked around in bright red expensive cowboy boots. He was an ex-pilot who used his skills to traffic drugs. He was caught, convicted, and sentenced to 4 years in prison. Just like Omaima, he had moved to California to start a new life for himself. It was in 1991 when they both met at a bar and played a few games of pool. Bill was brandishing his large wads of cash around and boasting about the amount of property and land he owned. This, of course, was incredibly appealing to a woman who had so far made a career out of taking money from men. After knowing each other for just a few days, the two got married. Bill was 56 at the time, and Omaima was 23. Bill couldn't believe his luck in finding someone 33 years younger than himself, and he often bragged about having a wife half his age. They got married by a telephone ceremony conducted by an Egyptian priest. Bill left out a significant detail about his life when making the commitment to Omaima. He was already married to another woman. The divorce from his previous wife had not yet been finalized, meaning that the marriage was not a legal one. But after this phone ceremony, the two of them went on a honeymoon to Texas and Arkansas to meet Bill's family members. His family weren't too impressed, not only because of Bill's hastiness, but because Omaima was younger than some of his children. The couple returned to California and lived together in Bill's apartment. Now fast forward 4 weeks to the 1st of December 1991. In the early hours of that morning, a man named Jose heard a loud pounding at his door. Intrigued as to whom it could be, he looked outside of his window, and when he did, he saw a red Corvette parked up. He was confused, as he didn't know anybody who had this car. Since he didn't know who it could be, he didn't open the door, and eventually, this person left. But later on that day, the red Corvette returned, and this time, he could see exactly who it was. It was Omaima. Jose and Omaima had previously had a fling for a brief period of time. She was crying and was covered in scratches, and told him that her husband Bill had attacked her and forced himself upon her. She then opened up a black bin liner and told him the chilling news. She said that she had no choice but to kill him in self-defense, and that she had sliced up his body into pieces and needed help to get rid of him. Jose looked down into the black bin liner, which was filled with human organs and tissue. She said that if he would help, she would give him 2 motorbikes and $75,000. Jose was of course taken aback by this strange request to become an accomplice to a murder. He quickly devised a plan. He told Omaima that he would meet her soon at her apartment. He told her to go back and wait for him to arrive. This was a lie. The second she left, he went back into the apartment and contacted the emergency services immediately and explained the situation. The police found her in the red Corvette, and they noticed the same bin bags on the seat that Jose had told them about. And when they looked inside, they too found the human tissue and organs. The police quickly searched the apartment, and inside, they found multiple suitcases with trash bags inside. And inside the trash bags were human remains. Police also found a broken lamp and a clothing iron that had been broken. Both of these items were covered in blood. And not only that, they found a mattress saturated with blood. And inside the bedroom, they found a totally skinned, totally gutted human torso. The torso had been completely butchered and hung up above the bathtub, suspended with clothing hangers. The blood was dripping down into the plug hole. The police then entered the kitchen, and inside the deep fat fryer, they found turkey meat and 2 human hands that were cooked and floating in the oil. And on the kitchen side, they found pieces of human bone and tissue. The human flesh had been cooked with turkey and cranberry sauce. They then found Bill's head in the freezer. It was wrapped in tin foil and had also been cooked in the deep fat fryer. Omaima was questioned, and she told the police that Bill had killed someone and that he was away on a business trip in Florida. She said the remains were that of the person that Bill had killed. That story she had told would quickly be unravelled once they told her they had found Bill's head deep fried in the freezer. She changed her story multiple times. At one point, she claimed an ancient Egyptian demon inside her head had been speaking to her and convinced her to butcher her husband and destroy his body. The demon told her that if the body was destroyed, he wouldn't be able to get to the afterlife. And sometimes, when she spoke to the police, she acted and behaved like Bill was still alive. She also repeatedly claimed that Bill had been abusive towards her, and that he had forced himself upon her too. She said she had to kill him to defend herself. The police then examined her body to see if this was true, as it could be somewhat of a plausible motive for killing him, or at least make a case for her having a total breakdown. But when she was examined in the hospital, they found absolutely no evidence of sexual trauma or physical abuse. She did have cuts on her face and body, but these were not defensive wounds. They were self-inflicted. She had clawed at her own face and body and cut herself with a knife. It was on Thanksgiving Day when Bill had spoken with his daughter Margaret on the phone. He told her how happy he was with his new life and his new wife, and that he wanted her to come over and enjoy a Thanksgiving dinner with himself and Omaima. His daughter declined the offer, and this was the last time she ever spoke to her father. The medical examiner and the investigators managed to piece together what happened on that Thanksgiving Day. They claimed that Omaima had tied up Bill in a bondage sexual act which was consensual. Then it speculated that she had found out that they weren't legally married and entitled to any money, so she could have possibly tied him up and demanded money from him. When Bill refused to give in to her demands, Omaima began to hack into his genitals and castrated him. She then struck Bill on the head multiple times, caving in his skull, and then stabbed him with scissors. She decapitated him, removed his organs, skinned him, and cut off his limbs. They determined that the cause of death was blunt force trauma to his head. Bill's body had been dismembered with such professionalism and precision, the medical examiner believed that she had done this multiple times before. Around 1,000 pounds of Bill's body was still missing. One of the neighbours told the police that they had heard the garbage disposal running for long periods of time over the last few days since Thanksgiving. The police believed that this is where the missing 100 pounds of his body had gone. And that was until Omaima spoke to a psychologist. She told them that she had prepared some barbecue sauce and ripped some of Bill's ribs, cooked them, and devoured his flesh. She then bragged to the psychologist that nothing was sweeter than the taste of human meat, but that Bill was especially sweet. It's worth mentioning that she did later say that those statements were fabricated, and now denies that she ever cannibalized her husband. The psychologist diagnosed her with PTSD from the abuse from her father and the FGM that she suffered. During the trial, she claimed that Bill had forced himself upon her multiple times and was physically abusive towards her throughout the 4-week marriage, and that she took his life when he had tied her up and done with her as he pleased. She said that she managed to get one hand free, grabbed the lamp on the bedside table, and hit him in the head and stabbed him with the scissors to save herself. She then claimed that she had absolutely no memory of mutilating Bill's body. The story that she had been tied up wasn't taken seriously, as when Bill's body was examined, they found marks on his ankles that showed he was the one who was tied up. In January of 1993, she was found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to 28 years to life. While in prison, Omaima gained a fan, and this fan was a very wealthy disabled man in his 70s. They married, and the man soon passed away, leaving Omaima a lot of money. This may sound strange, but when writing about this case late at night, I thought about being a fly on the wall watching this whole crime being carried out in front of me. Watching a woman kill her husband, skin him, rip out his organs and dismember him, and watching her cook him and devour his flesh. And while she does this, she claws at her own face and cuts herself with a knife. The images my mind depicted gave me serious chills, especially when I read that she claimed an ancient Egyptian demon had told her to do it, and when she spoke about how sweet human flesh tastes. I don't know why, but the whole combination of those things and writing so late at night just left me feeling so uneasy, which is somewhat of a first for me. It's a strange juxtaposition to see someone who was considered to be conventionally beautiful on the outside, only to be so dark and twisted on the inside, the personification of evil. Omaima first became eligible for parole in 2006, but was denied when the commissioners found her to be too unpredictable. And in 2011, she was denied as she had not taken responsibility for the murder. She will be eligible for parole again in 2026.